little bit late to the party on this because the first box that I wanted to check off for this year was the Arnold and the Arnold UK. That was kind of sapping up a lot of my attention, as it should. And if you're ever going to do a prep into a bodybuilding show, as it will, if you think your days are centered around the gym now, go for a prep, and see what happens. And that's not to be a bad omen. I'm just saying. But that was my first year check this box off kind of goal. I did this last year, early last year, January, February or something. I had like 10 things that I wanted to do in, that'd be 2025. Big Sharpie, maybe it might not even, it wasn't even 10, it might have been like 8, I forget exactly. But throughout the year, 6 months in, I'm Xing them off, and then I moved, so I kind of lost track of the paper. But then I found it again. I realized, oh shit, I hit every single one of these freaking things. Hell yeah. So now I'm gonna get home and write one out for myself going forward. I've got a couple. I've got a few things that I want to do. I can probably think of 10. I can probably think of 10 solid things where if I boil down the year, obviously day by day, not exactly the wildest endeavors, just for anybody. Even people who do insane, incredible stuff, they've got a regular Tuesday. They've got a chill Friday where they just hang out at home and order Domino's and watch a movie, right? It's not a every day has to be insane kind of deal. But I do want to be able to boil down like, oh yeah, 2026 was that year that I did the Arnold, and then I went to the UK and did the other one. And then I got crazy food poisoning, and I was, throwing up like a freaking geyser for a week. And then I came home. That was crazy. Obviously, that last part isn't fun, but it kind of adds to the story of it. And then, whatever else I can keep doing for the rest of the year. And isn't that, kind of what we all want? Like, I really resonate with the idea. I don't think, Joe Rogan didn't come up with this, but that's the only reference I could think of someone who said this that I've heard, is the idea that you are the main character in your own movie. And the point of the quote, how he was saying it, is the movie starts right now. What do you do? If you want it to be interesting, if you want it to be fun, if you want it to be cool, and that makes a lot of sense to me, right? You're the guy who's watching your life basically constantly. And I think watching is a pretty accurate description, at least for the majority of time. Because when you're doing something really intently, like full-on focus, conscious effort, a lot of thinking might be involved, then you're probably very present. Your full mental capacity is being used. Not like 100% of the human brain, Lucy style, but you're very attentive at this current moment. And that's not exactly when I'm talking about. But when you're walking to a class, or when you're just, doing a 30-minute drive to the gym, or you get home and you're, just watching a movie or something. A lot of just kind of, half conscious, half autopilot things happen, and if you catch yourself on autopilot too much, you're basically on autopilot a lot of the times. You're not consciously thinking, okay, one step in front of the other. Okay, like when you're walking, you just do it. You don't even think about it. It's a second nature. So the more often that you're on autopilot, right, the less cool stuff you're going to do. And then obviously in the present moment of doing it, it feels pretty cool. But also getting to look back and say you did it. That's really most of it, the present moment is fleeting, but it's also constant, which is kind of funky. But when I look back at, what all adds up to Sam, it's not what I'm doing in this exactly right now. It's what have I done before, right? So I guess what I'm trying to say is I want to do some cool stuff so that fast forward however long, I can think back and say, hell yeah, I did that. Or look at the pictures and videos that I took of, the places that I've been or the people I've seen and things along those lines and say, nice. you know. And it doesn't have to be like this ecstatic feeling, but just, you know, to look back over the past with content, you know, with just not exactly, and just be happy about it. That is a very, I think that's a very underrated kind of idea. It's not a flashy idea, but I think it's an underrated idea. And the inverse way of saying that is I don't want to have any regrets, you know. But when we talk about that, when it's always like, you know, do you want to regret your 20s if you don't lock in? Do you want to regret the, you know, the whatever? To preface it in that way is kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like an anxious, motivating factor. You know, and that's not how I like it. Like, that's a negative motivation. Like, hey man, we're all gonna croak one day. You better do something cool. Like, that's this adverse pressure, you know, and I don't like to think like that. Like, when I hear a bodybuilder say in an old training video something along the lines of like, all I see are my weak points. I'm never happy with myself. The end motivation is he wants to get bigger and grow muscle, which I think I also have the same motivation as. You know, maybe he just said that for the video, who knows? But that sucks. That's not fun. That's not cool. You know, I want to kind of look at it from a more positive angle, in the sense of saying, dude, I feel pretty cool right now. And if I keep doing what I'm doing and get bigger, I'll feel even cooler later. Hell yeah. And that's kind of what the motivating thought process. So same thing with like, all right, man, do you want to regret this year, or do you want to kill it this year? You know, I'd rather think of it like, I just want to have a good year, you know. And I'm normally not even thinking in that broad of a time scale. Usually I'm thinking just week to week, month to month, day to day. You know, I want to keep myself occupied with the day to day, because those are the things that are really at hand. But I still think a little bit further forward, at least just a touch. So all that's to say is, think about the last time you did something pretty cool. And not only that, but also remember what happened before you did it, right? I mean, I think going to these 2 bodybuilding shows this past month was pretty freaking cool. But it also cost like 5.5 months of very strict dieting, and I think a net total of like 10 days of cardio straight. I don't know if that number is accurate, but it's definitely not less than 10 days of cardio over the course of that period of time, you know. So it's kind of this pattern of, the cool stuff is the pinnacle of the pyramid, and everything underneath needs to support it so that it can actually freaking happen, right? Every PR is backed up by what? However many tens of hundreds of workouts before you actually got to that level. You know, things like that. So you've got to, for one, be excited for the future about what you can do and work towards, but also be excited about just what you'd call the more boring stuff on the day by day, and be equally as content, if not maybe more, just from the little victories that add up, you know. So take with that what you will. Take with that what you freaking will. So in terms of the little victory that I want today, is going to be destroyed hamstrings, to the point where when I bend over to take my shoes off when I get home, I get a singeing pain of soreness through my entire hamstrings, because they're so pumped up and erect. You know, maybe not that bad, but something along those lines. So I'll see what I end up wanting to throw around. But in terms of the gym, I think the gym has a few weak points that I want to let's just say adjust for. So that's going to be an adductor machine, basically just camp out there every leg day, as well as what was I thinking? Was I thinking a dip machine? Maybe. I don't know, I can't freaking remember. But either way, an adductor machine and a dip machine would certainly fill in some gaps. Normally for triceps, I'm thinking regular pushdowns, overhead pushdowns, dips. So I'm missing the dip factor. And then for legs, just an adductor is just kind of necessary. So I'll scan around. Might have to do a little bit of a U-Haul drive. There's all sorts of used gym equipment companies everywhere. Like just, you know, somebody's got a warehouse full of some old stuff. So I'll scan around. I know there's a few. There's this one guy at a gym down in a little bit further south from where I live who showed me this place that had some pretty good cardio equipment. I'm not sure it has any weight equipment though. But either way, I think the battery's about to die because I forgot to charge this thing. So let's let it charge up and then get amped for some hamstrings. I mean, I'm excited. I just, you know, I know most people aren't. But let's get in there. All right. In all seriousness, I think that hamstring curls, laying seated or otherwise, laying of course, are probably one of the movements that benefits the most from using more moderate weight and really squeezing and burning at the top. Like, I like a heavy, nasty set, but if I had to only pick one style for hamstrings, I would pick lighter with a crazy burning squeeze. So that's going to be my theme for this one. All I got to do is go nuts. All right, come on. Yeah. Okay. A few more like that. All right, same deal. But actually, let's bump it up a notch. Let's hit the 90. Come on. Okay. All right, that's a little too heavy. Back to the 80. Let's do some 1-2 reps. You'll see. All right. One more like that. And then I'll switch it up to some single leg standing curls behind me. Ooh. Yeah, let's do a lighter, more pumpish set now. I mean, I'm already feeling pumped. Obviously, I'm not done, but let's keep going. All right. So I'm standing on what's equivalent to a bumper plate worth of 45s. I have the weight set at 40 degrees. If you're using a hammer strength leg press, I'm on the 4th loosest setting and the medium leg setting. So this puts me in the perfect position to bend over and essentially just have a completely new machine instead of a leg extension by spinning in here backwards, holding on for support. Now I have a single leg curl, which, I mean, you know, it's just as different as like a dumbbell preacher is to a dumbbell curl, but it's pretty different. So if you can find this setup or just have a single leg standing leg curl, you're good. Keep it in the mix. Okay. Ooh, one more of those. All right. Same thing as last time. Even locking the machine into my normal preferred setup is tricky because my hamstrings are so pumped, it's made my legs thicker top to bottom. But this will be good. Not the whole stack, only a third of it, and that's about right. So I'm really gonna make these ones burn. All right. Yeah. Okay, let's do a drop set. That's heavier than I thought. Yeah. Okay. Whoa. Okay. Yeah. Let's see how hams are looking pumped. All right. So that was what? I think 7 total sets for hamstrings, which is pretty much within reason. I'm definitely going to get into more hefty hip hinging going forward. But for today, just straight up ham-based curls, or curl-based hams will suffice. So even though quads have gotten 0 stimulation, just the additional blood flow of blood into my hamstrings when they got pumped kind of gives you a residual quad pump, or at least some extra quad veins. So even just sitting looking at them, that is what I'm talking about. Still striated, a little bit of feathering, which I do not want to lose. I'm trying to ease into this cardio, what am I saying? Ease into this calorie surplus so that I don't instantly lose all my separation and, you know, cuts and veins and everything else. Because this is a long diet. I want to reap the benefits. I don't want to just soften myself up to 280 for no freaking reason, right? That'd be silly. But yeah, hams, it's kind of tricky with hamstrings to actually really pose them. I mean, calves are kind of nuts, but when your hamstrings are fully pumped, they kind of just get swollen and they lose their cuts and striations. But also when they get so tense and tight, like your hamstrings are already always like tight. That's kind of just the nature of how they're like meant to work, I guess. So when they get pumped up, like, yeah, they're a little bit bigger for sure, but they don't just like burst out. They kind of suck into your leg almost. Like if I had to pick the prime state to look at my legs pumped, I would definitely say quads, calves, and then hamstrings unpumped. Because then in all of the different hamstring flexes, like a back kind of pose or a back double bicep where you can really tense and show off like your hamstring fibers, when they're unpumped, you'll actually be able to freaking see them. But a little bit of a lighter leg day in contrast to the next leg day, which is going to be quad focused. So real just, we'll see. I was about to say real decimation, but I guess I can't say that for sure. We've got to see it and actually get there. But solid hamstring pump, an underappreciated lift, but having some strong hamstrings makes you look bigger. Don't forget it.